John Miller stood at his living room window, staring at the night sky. The stars looked the same as they always had, but everything had changed. Just 6 hours ago, aliens had come to Earth. "John, come quick. They're about to make another announcement," Lisa called from the couch. Her voice trembled with excitement. John joined his wife, sitting close enough that their shoulders touched. The special news broadcast showed crowds gathered in major cities around the world. Everyone wanted to see the visitors who called themselves the Consortium of Aligned Species. The alien delegate appeared on screen. It had smooth blue skin and 4 arms. Its voice sounded like music when it spoke through the translator. "People of Earth, we welcome you to the galactic community," it said. "We have watched your progress for many years." John felt Lisa squeeze his hand. This was history happening right before their eyes. "The consortium offers protection, technology, and trade to developing worlds like yours," the alien continued. "In return, we require your acceptance of certain terms." The terms appeared on the screen one by one. Earth would be classified as a developing world. Humans would need permission to travel beyond their solar system. Earth's resources would be subject to quotas set by the consortium. Human technology would require approval before use. "These terms are standard for species at your development stage," the alien said. "We have guided many worlds to prosperity this way." The world leaders on stage looked uncertain. The President of the United States stepped forward. "We appreciate your offer, but we need time to consider these terms and consult with our people." The alien's smooth face showed no expression. "We understand your hesitation. However, the consortium does not reward indecision." The broadcast suddenly switched to a view of Mars and its moons. One of the moons, Phobos, began to glow with a strange light. "What's happening?" Lisa whispered. Before John could answer, Phobos exploded. The moon shattered into millions of pieces. The room fell silent except for the reporter's shocked voice. "The consortium ship has destroyed Phobos. The Mars colony is reporting debris. Casualties." Lisa screamed. Her brother Greg worked at the research station on Phobos. 500 people lived there. John held her as she collapsed in tears. "This demonstration shows our capabilities," the alien said calmly. "The consortium offers progress but requires respect. You have 3 days to accept our terms." The broadcast ended. Emergency alerts blared on their phones. The world descended into panic. 3 days later, Earth's leaders signed the agreement. What choice did they have? The alien ships hovering above major cities made the threat clear. Humanity had joined the consortium as a junior member, a servant species. Life changed quickly. Consortium observers arrived in every country. They monitored factories, power plants, and research labs. They limited what humans could build, where they could go, and what resources they could use. 6 months passed. John now worked for the consortium, redesigning buildings to meet their standards. He came home late every night, exhausted and angry. Lisa had not been the same since Greg's death. She moved through their apartment like a ghost. The doctor called it depression, but John knew it was more than that. Something inside her had broken. That night, John found Lisa sitting in the dark, staring at an old photo of Greg. He wanted to explore the stars. She whispered, "Now we'll never be allowed to." Something snapped inside John as he looked at his broken wife. A cold anger filled him, different from the hot rage he'd felt before. This was deeper, quieter, more dangerous. He kissed Lisa's forehead and went to his desk. He took out a blank sheet of paper and began to draw. It started as a simple shape, then grew more complex. By morning, he had filled dozens of pages with designs for something enormous, something impossible, something that would make the consortium remember humanity forever. 6 months had passed since John began his secret drawings. Every night, after working on consortium-approved housing designs, he would sketch his impossible structure until dawn. He kept the drawings hidden in a loose floorboard under their bed. John sat in a small cafe downtown, nursing a cup of coffee that wasn't really coffee. The consortium had decided real coffee was an inefficient use of farmland. This brown liquid was their approved substitute. "Mind if I join you?" a woman asked, gesturing to the empty chair at his table. It's a free country, John said, then laughed bitterly. Or it used to be. The woman sat down. She had short red hair and alert eyes. I'm Carol Wright, she said. I work in materials engineering at the old university. John nodded, not particularly interested in conversation. He absent-mindedly sketched on a napkin as he sipped his fake coffee. Carol's eyes widened as she watched his hand move. That's an interesting design, she said quietly. What is it? John looked down. He'd been drawing part of his structure without thinking. He quickly crumpled the napkin. Nothing, just doodling. That wasn't nothing, Carol said. She leaned closer. Those angles shouldn't work together, but you made them fit. How? John stared at her. You noticed that? Carol smiled. I study how materials connect and interact. Your design breaks several laws of physics, but somehow looks like it could actually stand. She slid a business card across the table. If you're interested in discussing it further, come to this address tonight at 8. John studied the card. It showed only an address in an old industrial area. Why would I go to an abandoned warehouse to meet a stranger? Because you're drawing something that shouldn't be possible, Carol said, standing up. And because you crumpled that napkin instead of throwing it away. You're hiding something, John Miller. Something big. John froze. How do you know my name? We've been watching you, Carol said simply, then walked away. That night, against his better judgment, John told Lisa he was working late and went to the address. The warehouse looked empty from outside, but a hidden elevator took him underground to a vast room filled with people and equipment. Carol greeted him. Welcome to Project Defiance, she said. John looked around in amazement. Scientists and engineers worked at stations filled with technology he didn't recognize. At the center of the room stood a tall man with gray hair and military posture. Admiral Alan Carter. The man introduced himself, shaking John's hand firmly. Former commander of Earth's Space Defense Fleet, before the consortium decided we didn't need one. What is this place? John asked. The future, Admiral Carter replied. Or rather, humanity's attempt to have one. Carol led John to a table where his napkin drawing had been scanned and projected as a hologram. Tell us about your design, John. John hesitated. It's just something I've been working on at home. A structure. A structure bigger than a planet, from what we can tell, Carol said. A structure that defies known physics. How could you possibly know that? John asked. Admiral Carter smiled grimly. The consortium thinks they're monitoring all our communications, but we've found ways around them. We've been gathering people who dream beyond our cage, people drawing impossible things, people like you. A young man approached with a tablet. The scans match the energy signatures we detected in his home. He's definitely the source. John felt cold. You've been spying on me? We've been finding you, Carol corrected. We need people who can think outside consortium limitations. Admiral Carter placed a hand on John's shoulder. The consortium destroyed my fleet in a training accident. When I questioned their authority, everyone here has lost something. What did you lose, John? John thought of Lisa's empty eyes, of her brother who died on Phobos. Everything that matters. Then help us take it back, Carter said. Not with weapons. The consortium would crush any military response. We need something they can't ignore or destroy, something that will make them remember us forever. John slowly pulled his complete designs from his jacket. I think I might have just what you need. 3 years had passed since John joined Project Defiance. What began as a small group of rebels had grown into a global underground movement. John barely recognized the man he used to be, the quiet architect who followed rules. Today, he stood in a secret facility deep beneath the old mountains of Colorado. Around him, hundreds of people worked on different parts of his design. The gravity tests are ready, Susan Garcia called from her station. John walked over to where Susan stood. She was a top physicist who publicly worked for the consortium, while secretly developing technologies they had forbidden. Her long black hair was tied back and dark circles under her eyes showed she hadn't slept in days. "Are you sure this will work?" John asked. Susan smiled tiredly. "In theory? Yes. In practice? We'll find out." They watched as a small model of John's design, a structure of interlocking shapes, was placed in a testing chamber. Susan's team had spent years developing a way to manipulate gravity, the key to making John's impossible monument possible. Beginning test in 3, 2, 1. Susan pressed a button. The model began to glow. The shapes that made up the structure should have collapsed under their own weight, but instead they floated in perfect formation. Light bent around them in ways that defied normal physics. "It's working!" someone shouted. Then a warning alarm blared. The model's glow intensified. "Shut it down!" John yelled. Susan frantically worked the controls. "I can't. The reaction is self-sustaining." "Everyone out," Admiral Carter ordered from the observation deck. People rushed toward the exits as the chamber filled with blinding light. The blast doors began to close automatically. John saw Carol still at her station, trying to contain the reaction. "Carol, leave it!" She looked up and shouted something, but her words were lost as the model exploded. The shockwave threw John against the wall. When he opened his eyes, the chamber was in ruins. 17 people died that day. Carol was among them. Later, John sat alone in his quarters, staring at the wall. A knock came at his door. "It's open," he said. Susan walked in. Her face was bandaged where flying debris had cut her cheek. "I came to tell you I'm leaving the project," she said quietly. John looked up. "What?" 17 people, John. 17 people are dead because of my failure." "It wasn't your failure," John said. "It was all of ours. We're trying to do something no one has ever done before." Susan sat beside him. "Carol was my friend since college. She believed in this more than anyone." They sat in silence for a while, sharing their grief. "The consortium took thousands of lives when they destroyed Phobos," John finally said. "They crush our spirit every day. If we give up now, Carol died for nothing." Susan wiped away tears. "What do you suggest?" "We need to go bigger," John said. "Not just a test. Full-scale production." "That's insane," Susan said. "We'd need resources, a construction site far from Earth." "I know someone who can help with that," John interrupted. He pulled up a communication link. "Paul, it's time." Paul Evans appeared on the screen. He was a former mining executive who now ran secret operations in the asteroid belt. "I've been waiting for your call," Paul said. "My team has secured a base in the Kuiper Belt, far beyond consortium monitoring. We can begin construction whenever you're ready." John looked at Susan. "Are you still leaving?" She was quiet for a long moment. Then she straightened her shoulders. "No. Carol would want me to finish what we started." John nodded and turned back to the screen. "Paul, prepare your team. We're going to build something that will change everything." "What exactly are we building?" Paul asked. John's eyes gleamed with determination. "A monument to human defiance. A structure so massive, so impossible, that its very existence will be a middle finger to the entire consortium." Susan smiled despite her grief. "And we'll build it in Carol's memory." 2 years into construction, the project was well underway in the distant Kuiper Belt. Every day, ships disguised as routine mining vessels transported materials to the massive construction site. John split his time between Earth and the site, always careful to avoid consortium detection. One morning, John was reviewing plans in his apartment when Lisa rushed in, her face pale. "There's a consortium ship landing at the main spaceport," she said. "It wasn't scheduled." John's stomach tightened. Lisa now worked in consortium communications, a position that gave her access to valuable information. She still didn't know about Project Defiance. John had kept her in the dark to protect her. "Do you know why they're here?" John asked, quickly hiding his plans. "The official reason is a friendship visit, but rumors say they've noticed discrepancies in resource reports. They're investigating something." John nodded calmly. though his heart raced. I'm sure it's nothing serious. That afternoon, John met with Admiral Carter and Susan in their underground base. The consortium delegate's name is Xerix, Admiral Carter said, known for being particularly thorough in investigations. Susan looked worried. They must have noticed the missing resources or unusual energy signatures from our gravity tech tests. We need to throw them off our trail, John said. Create a distraction, Admiral Carter nodded. I have loyal people in the Saturn colonies. We could stage a small rebellion, nothing too serious, just enough to draw consortium attention away from our activities. People could get hurt, Susan objected. Not if we plan it carefully, Carter replied. A few explosions in empty areas, some communication disruptions. The consortium will crack down quickly, but while they're focused on Saturn, we accelerate construction, John finished. Kevin's transportation network is ready. We can move twice the materials while the consortium is distracted. Kevin Bernard was their transportation specialist who had developed a fleet of automated ships that could travel undetected by appearing as space debris. 3 days later, news broke of terrorist activity in the Saturn colonies. Consortium forces rushed to respond. As predicted, security tightened throughout the solar system, but their focus shifted away from resource discrepancies. John watched the news with Lisa in their living room. It's terrible what's happening on Saturn, Lisa said, but the consortium ships that were here left to help with the situation. John felt a pang of guilt. Yes, terrible. Lisa studied his face. You don't seem surprised by any of this. I'm just tired, John said. Work has been demanding. Lisa touched his hand. You've changed, John. You're hardly ever home, and when you are, you seem distant. John wanted to tell her everything, but he couldn't risk it. Not yet. Things will get better, I promise. Later that night, John met with Xerix's former aide, Matthew Howard, who had defected to Project Defiance after witnessing consortium cruelty firsthand. Xerix suspects something big is happening, Matthew said. But the Saturn distraction worked. They're redirecting resources to put down the rebellion. How long do we have? John asked. A few months at most before they resume their investigation. John nodded. Then we need to work faster. At the construction site, the monument was taking shape. Larger than Earth's moon, the massive structure consisted of interwoven geometric shapes held in place by Susan's gravity technology. Workers in spacesuits moved around the framework like ants on a giant sculpture. John floated near the central hub, watching as new sections were attached. The structure wasn't just big, it was beautiful in a strange, impossible way. Light bent around it, creating patterns that seemed to move and shift as you watched. It's not enough, John said to Susan as she joined him. What do you mean? It's already the largest structure humans have ever built. But it needs to be more than just big, John explained. It needs to mean something. The consortium destroyed Phobos as a message. Our monument needs to send a message too. Susan looked at the massive framework. What kind of message? John's eyes gleamed. One that will echo across the galaxy. One that says humanity will never be broken. Susan smiled. Then we'd better make it loud and clear. 4 years into the project, Susan worked tirelessly in her lab on the Kuiper Belt base. Dark circles underlined her eyes, but excitement radiated from her face. For months, she had battled with a problem in her gravity manipulation equations. Today, she finally solved it. John, she called over the communication system. Come to the lab. Now. John arrived minutes later, out of breath. What happened? Susan grinned. I did it. I found the missing piece. She pointed to her computer, screen where complex equations scrolled past. John didn't understand the math, but he recognized the simulation running alongside it. A perfect model of their monument with gravity fields bending in new ways. This will let us build at 10 times the scale, Susan explained. And it gives the structure new properties. Watch. She tapped a command and the simulation changed. The monument now bent light around it in a controlled pattern, creating a lens effect that could project images across vast distances of space. It's not just a structure anymore, Susan said. It's a beacon, one that can send a message to every star system in the consortium. John stared in awe. This changes everything. They called an emergency meeting with the project leaders. Paul Evans attended via secure link from his asteroid mining operation. Admiral Carter and Kevin Bernard were present in person. Matthew Howard, their former consortium insider, brought new intelligence. The consortium has nearly finished cleaning up the Saturn rebellion, Matthew reported. They'll resume their investigation soon, and they've tightened control on Earth. Go bad? John asked. Food rationing, travel restrictions, increased surveillance. People are angry but afraid to speak out. John thought of Lisa back on Earth. He hadn't seen her in weeks. We need to accelerate our timeline, Admiral Carter said. Susan's breakthrough gives us an opportunity. The monument is only 60% complete, Paul objected. We need at least another year. We don't have a year, Matthew said. I've intercepted communications about the Grand Council meeting. Everyone fell silent. The Grand Council was the consortium's ruling body, gathering once every 50 years. When? Susan asked. 3 months from now, Matthew said. Every major species in the consortium will attend. It's the perfect moment to unveil our message. John nodded slowly. We'll need to work around the clock. Kevin, can your ships handle doubled cargo loads? It's risky, but yes, Kevin said. Paul, we need more workers at the construction site. Paul grimaced. I'll find them somehow. Susan, how soon can your new gravity system be implemented? 2 months if we push it, she said. Do it, John ordered. This is our one chance. As the meeting ended, John received an urgent message from Earth. Lisa had discovered unusual payments in his financial records and was asking questions. John knew he couldn't hide the truth much longer. At the construction site, work continued at a frantic pace. The monument grew larger each day, its impossible geometry taking final shape. From certain angles, it looked like a massive sculpture. From others, it seemed to disappear entirely, bending light around itself. John stood on an observation platform watching workers add new sections. Susan joined him, holding a tablet with the latest test results. The gravity system is stabilizing, she said, but there's something else. She showed him readings from the structure's core. Strange energy patterns had appeared unexpectedly. Is it dangerous? John asked. I don't think so, Susan said. It's almost as if the structure is responding to us, like it's becoming something more than we designed. John stared at the monument, its vast shape silhouetted against the stars. What if it's not just sending our message? What if it's becoming our message? Susan looked thoughtful. You mean the structure itself represents humanity's defiance? Exactly, John said. Look at it, impossible shapes working together in perfect harmony. Physics says it shouldn't exist, but it does. Just like the consortium said, humanity shouldn't rise above its place, but we will. Susan smiled. Then we'd better make sure it's finished in time for the Grand Council meeting. We will, John promised, no matter what it takes. 7 years. After first contact, the monument was 80% complete. The consortium Grand Council meeting was just 1 week away. John had returned to Earth to settle matters with Lisa, knowing he could no longer hide the truth from her. He found her, waiting in their apartment, her face tight with anger and worry. Where have you been? She demanded. I know you haven't been at work. I called your office. John took a deep breath. I need to show you something. He pulled out a small device and projected a hologram of the monument. Lisa stared at the rotating image, confusion replacing anger. What is that? She asked. Hope, John said simply. Then he told her everything. Project Defiance, Carol's death, Susan's breakthroughs, the plan to reveal the monument during the Grand Council meeting. Lisa sat silently through his explanation. When he finished, she looked at him with tears in her eyes. All this time I thought you were pulling away because you didn't care anymore. I was trying to protect you, John said. Lisa touched the hologram, watching it shimmer. This is for Greg, isn't it? For everyone on Phobos. Yes, John said. And for all of us still here. Lisa's communications device buzzed. She checked it, then looked up with fear in her eyes. The consortium has discovered unusual energy signals in the Kuiper belt. They're sending a battle fleet to investigate. John's blood ran cold. When? They launched an hour ago. John activated his emergency communicator. Susan, they've found us. The consortium is coming. How soon can we activate the monument? Susan's voice crackled through. It's not fully complete. We might be able to get basic functions working in 48 hours, but we don't have 48 hours, John interrupted. How soon? A pause. 24, if we push everything to the limit. Do it, John ordered. I'm on my way. He turned to Lisa. I have to go. Lisa stood up. I'm coming with you. It's too dangerous. My brother died because of the consortium, Lisa said firmly. I want to see this monument light up the sky. 20 hours later, John, Lisa, and Susan stood in the monument's control center. Workers rushed to complete final connections as alarms blared. Consortium fleet detected, a technician announced. Estimated arrival in 4 hours. We'll be ready in 3, Susan promised, not looking up from her console. Admiral Carter's voice came through the communication system. My ships are in position. To buy you some time if needed. No, John said. No more sacrifices. This monument was never meant to be a weapon. It's a message. The hours passed in a blur of activity. Energy levels rose as Susan's gravity technology came online throughout the structure. The monument hummed with power. 1 hour to consortium arrival. The technician called. Susan looked at John. It's now or never. John nodded and turned to Lisa. Are you ready? She took his hand. For Greg. John pressed the activation sequence. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the monument began to glow. Throughout the vast structure, gravity fields shifted. Light bent and focused. The monument didn't just reflect light, it captured it, shaped it, and projected it outward. It's working, Susan shouted over the rumble. The monument created a controlled gravitational lens focusing light into a beam that shot across the stars. But it wasn't just light. Embedded in the beam was humanity's story. Images of Earth, of human achievement, of struggle and triumph flowed through the gravitational lens. The birth of civilization, great works of art, moments of courage and kindness, scientific breakthroughs, all compressed into a signal visible across the galaxy. On viewing screens, they watched as the message reached the Grand Council chamber. Alien delegates turned in confusion as Earth's history played before them. Consortium fleet has stopped advancing, the technician reported. They're holding position. John squeezed Lisa's hand. They don't know what to make of it. They expected weapons, not this. What happens now? Lisa asked. John watched as the monument continued to broadcast humanity's story to the stars. Now we show them who we really are. Not servants, not children. Equals. Susan smiled. I think they're getting the message. The monument blazed against the darkness of space, a defiant light that could not be extinguished. Humanity's refusal to be diminished written in the stars themselves. 3 days after the monument's activation, the consortium fleet remained in position, neither advancing nor retreating. The monument continued to broadcast humanity's story across the stars, reaching worlds the consortium had kept isolated from each other for centuries. John stood with Admiral Carter on the observation deck, watching the alien ships through reinforced windows. Why haven't they attacked? John asked. They don't know what to do, Carter replied. We didn't build a weapon. They're soldiers, they understand weapons. He gestured at the monument. This is something new. A technician rushed in. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the lead consortium vessel. It's Zarix. He's requesting permission to board. Alone. John and Carter exchanged glances. Let him come, John decided. An hour later, Zarix stepped from a small shuttle into the monument's docking bay. The blue-skinned alien moved with careful precision, all 4 arms held open to show he carried no weapons. I am here to understand, Zarix said through his translator. John, Susan, and Lisa met him in a conference room overlooking the central hub of the monument. What do you wish to understand? John asked. Zarix gestured to the structure around them. This, You diverted resources, violated regulations, and risked severe punishment, not to build weapons or ships, but this message. It's more than a message, Susan explained. It's a declaration. Of war? Zarix asked. Of existence, Lisa said firmly. Of equality. Zarix studied them with large, reflective eyes. The Grand Council is in chaos. Your monument's broadcast reached every consortium world simultaneously. Some species are inspired, others are frightened. The Council cannot agree on how to respond. And what do you think? John asked. I think, Zarix said slowly, that the consortium has underestimated humanity. As they spoke, reports came in from across the solar system. On Earth, people were gathering in streets and squares, looking up at the sky where the monument's light was visible even during daylight hours. Some held celebrations. Others demanded freedom from consortium control. Your monument has created complications, Zarix said. The Council has ordered me to inform you of their decision. John steeled himself. Which is? Earth is cut off. No consortium ships will visit your world. No trade, no communication, no assistance. You are isolated until you dismantle this structure and accept your proper place. John smiled. They think isolation is a punishment? It is the traditional response to species who refuse guidance, Zarix explained. Then they don't understand. Humans at all, Susan said. Isolation won't break us. It will make us stronger. After Zarix departed, John called a meeting of all project leaders. The monument's control room was packed with people waiting to hear what would happen next. The consortium has cut us off, John announced. They think this will force us to surrender and dismantle the monument. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. But they've made a critical mistake, John continued. They've given us exactly what we need. Independence. Without their restrictions, we can develop our own technologies. Without their quotas, we can use our resources as we choose. Admiral Carter stepped forward. I've already ordered our ships to establish a defensive perimeter around the solar system. If the consortium returns, we'll be ready. And the monument? Someone called out. John looked at the massive structure that had consumed 7 years of his life. The monument stays. More than that, it grows. Susan's gravity technology has applications beyond what we've built here. We'll use it to solve problems on Earth, to build ships that can travel faster than anything the consortium has. Lisa took John's hand. We should give it a name. John thought for a moment. Defiance, he said, because that's what it represents. Not just rebellion, but the refusal to be anything less than what we can be. The crowd cheered. Later, John and Lisa stood alone at a viewport, watching as Earth came into view, small and blue in the distance, but now truly their own again. Do you think the consortium will leave us alone? Lisa asked. No, John said honestly. But next time they come, we'll be ready, and we won't be alone. He pointed to a communications panel where messages were appearing from other worlds, species inspired by humanity's stand, reaching out in secret. The monument didn't just change things for us, John said. It changed things for everyone who saw it, and that was always the point. Lisa smiled. Greg would have been proud. John nodded. Yes. Yes, he would. 5 years had passed since the monument named Defiance first lit up the stars. Earth had changed in ways no one could have predicted. John and Lisa stood on an observation platform near Saturn, watching as a new ship prepared for its maiden voyage. The vessel was unlike anything humans had built before. Its hull shaped by Susan's gravity technology, capable of speeds the consortium had claimed were impossible. Hard to believe how far we've come, Lisa said, leaning against the railing. John nodded. Without consortium restrictions, we've accomplished in 5 years what might have taken 50. The monument had continued to evolve. What began as a structure now pulsed with life of its own. Strange phenomena appeared in its vicinity. Time flowed differently. Physics behaved in new ways. Scientists from across Earth came to study it, developing theories that pushed the boundaries of human understanding. More surprisingly, scientists from other worlds began to arrive as well. First came a few brave researchers from younger consortium species, traveling in disguised ships. Then came official delegations from 7 worlds that had broken away from consortium control, inspired by humanity's defiance. Susan approached them on the platform, tablet in hand. "The Ganymede readings are off the charts," she said excitedly. "The gravity field modifications are working better than expected." Susan now led the Scientific Council, a group focused on applying monument technologies to improve life on Earth. Clean energy, advanced medicine, faster transportation, all had emerged from understanding the principles behind Defiance. "Any word from our friends?" John asked. Susan nodded. "The Lirani delegation has entered the solar system. They'll be here tomorrow." The Lirani were the latest species to break from the consortium, their crystalline ships now approaching Earth with an offer of alliance. John's communicator buzzed. Admiral Carter's voice came through. "John, you need to see this. Main observation lounge. Now." They hurried to the large windowed room that offered a panoramic view of space. Carter stood, with Matthew Howard watching a fleet of ships appear out of the darkness. "Consortium?" John asked. Carter shook his head. "Not exactly. That's the Grand Council's personal fleet. They never leave the Council world." The ships were magnificent, gleaming spirals of metal and light, far larger than standard consortium vessels. "They're hailing us," Matthew said. A view screen, activated, showing a diverse group of aliens. At their center stood Zarix, now wearing the ornate garments of a High Council member. "John Miller," Zarix said, "the Grand Council requests permission to approach Defiance." The room fell silent. In 5 years, the consortium had maintained their isolation policy, neither attacking nor communicating with Earth. "Why now?" John asked. "The consortium is changing," Zarix replied. 7 member worlds have declared independence. 12 more threaten to follow. The monument you built has become a symbol across the galaxy, not of human defiance alone, but of the right of all species to determine their own path. John looked at Carter, who nodded slightly. "Permission granted," John said. "But your ships remain at Saturn's orbit. Only 1 shuttle may approach." Later that day, the Grand Council representatives stood before Defiance, their many eyes and sensory organs taking in its impossible structure. The monument towered above them, larger than a planet, its geometric patterns shifting in ways that mesmerized even the oldest council members. "We come with an offer," the lead council member said. "The consortium recognizes Earth's autonomy. All restrictions are lifted. We offer full membership with equal standing among founding species." John, Susan, and Lisa exchanged glances. "And what do you want in return?" Susan asked. "Access to your monument technology," another council member said. "Shared scientific exchange." John smiled. "Technology can be shared, but Defiance itself remains as it is, a monument to the indomitable spirit of all who refuse to be diminished." The council members conferred among themselves, then nodded agreement. As night fell, John and Lisa returned to the observation platform. Below them, Earth glowed blue and green. Above them, Defiance shone like a second sun. "Do you think it's really over?" Lisa asked. "The consortium accepting us as equals?" John watched as ships from 7 different species moved freely through the solar system. Former enemies, now partners in a new kind of alliance. "I think it's just beginning," he said. "Defiance was never just for us. It was for everyone who looked up at the stars and refused to be told how small they were." Lisa rested her head on his shoulder. "Greg would have loved to see this." "He does," John said softly, looking at the monument that contained humanity's story, including the names of everyone lost on Phobos. "They all do." Defiance pulsed once, brilliantly, as if in agreement. Its light reached across the stars, a permanent reminder that some things cannot be conquered or controlled. The spirit of those who, when pushed too far, build monuments to their refusal to break.